Welcome back to the Drivetime podcast from the EV Summit. We're speaking to loads of our keynote guests and panelists here today. I'm joined now by Adam Wood. He's the Managing Director for Renault UK. Adam, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Jackie.
So you've had it was really funny. You did your keynote talking about loads of new product launches coming up. But what we're trying to do here as well is unlock. There's been a lot of talk about partnerships, bringing industries together, helping consumers make the transition into EVs, but you're targeting, you've got some great new product coming and also looking at how do you target different consumer groups. But it'd be great just to get a sort of a download of what you're working on and what you were talking about at the summit today.
Yeah, of course. I mean, firstly, it's a really exciting time for us. We're investing record levels in bringing, a huge range of really accessible EVs to market. And I think we've really seen a step change this year, if I'm honest, since we launched the new Renault 5. So delivery started in April.
Yes.
And we've seen actually just 12 months ago, 8% of our sales were electric. Now, well over 30% of our orders are fully electric. So
that's a massive jump, isn't it?
It's given a real buzz and impetus to the brand. And I think what's really encouraging is that over 80% of those have never bought a Renault before. So we're seeing new people in our showrooms and they're discovering all that there is to know about Renault today.
So are those consumers, younger consumers that are kind of curious because it's a small vehicle, it's fun, it's kind of the brand fits with what they want? Or is it, where are you seeing consumers coming?
Honestly, Jackie, it's from everyone and everywhere. There is honestly no real trend. I think what we're seeing with Renault 5 is people are just saying, I absolutely love that car. I want one.
Yeah.
Whether that's the second car, whether it's a primary car. Some are even car collectors. We're seeing young, old drives of different makes coming to the brand, and that's really exciting because it creates a great energy in our retailers. And actually, over 70% of them are buying their first electric car as well.
Nice.
So I think what it shows is when we've got that real emotional pull, actually more and more people in this country are prepared to go electric if we provide a compelling answer.
It was funny, one of the other OEMs, I won't mention their names, was picking up your vehicle on a panel. So it was like from a competitor brand, they were saying what a great product it was. And I think that's really kind of respect where it's due. When you bring something really great to market that has an iconic kind of level of excitement about it, it is really great because it does bring footfall into a brand that maybe you haven't seen before. So
no, absolutely. I think what it's done, as you said, is prove that electric cars can be fun.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we're perhaps guilty as an industry of forgetting that we know that technology is important, but it's really important that we speak to customers' hearts as well as their heads. And I think what we've done with Renault 5 is exactly that. We've really pulled at the heartstrings, if you like, of all that nostalgia, but in a thoroughly modern way. And I think what customers are seeing as well is it makes financial sense from a purchase price, but also from a running cost perspective.
Yeah.
So our job was to try and make that as easy as possible. We've tried to, using tools on our website and now training with our retailers, spell out that simple equation that it not only is it a great looking car, but it's also affordable to run too.
So was the total cost of ownership, was that kind of part of the bring it to market, really educate retailers about the conversations and the way that you're going to bring this thing to market?
Absolutely. I mean, it's something we've talked about as an industry for a long time, isn't it? We've always...
totally.
And even gets abbreviated to TCO, which, let's be honest, 90% of customers out there don't yet understand, particularly this next generation of mainstream adopters. So what we wanted to do is actually empower people with the facts. That's why we've got a simple calculator. It allows you to play with the mileage, play with your home price of electricity and come to the conclusion yourself with objective data, because I think we forget that these equations of miles per gallon against pence per kilowatt, whether I've got home charging, whether I'm charging overnight, they're complex things for us in the industry, let alone people who are not familiar with it. So making it easy and also giving our retailers the ability to explain that was really important, because I think that's how we've convinced people that, it's heart and head together. The
proof's in the sales, isn't it, really? You've kind of seen adoption go from this to this by making it easier for consumers to make informed decisions.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Obviously, there's been a phenomenal press reaction to the car. I mean, it's won Top Gear Car of the Year, What Car of the Year, European Car of the Year. So we've certainly got a lot of buzz and interest around the product. And then it was down to us really to make that journey, that buying journey, pleasant and make it simple as well. And I think that's going to be even more important, isn't it, as new technology comes into the sector. I mean, at the EV Summit today, we're hearing about heat pumps, we're hearing about smart energy tariffs overnight, we're hearing about vehicle to grid technology, which we at Renault Group have launched in Europe. All of these things are brilliant for consumers. They're going to bring benefits that bring the cost down. I think what's really important, what we've learned from Renault 5 is we've got to make that simple and talk to customers in their language, make sure that those savings at the end of the day are clear. I think if we do that together, I'm pretty confident we can keep on this good trajectory.
There's no alternative to not getting on that trajectory, really. So you mentioned a couple of things there about heat pump technology. There's a lot of talk about sustainable energy and also bringing together infrastructure with OEMs. So what things are you looking for when you come to a summit like this? What's the kind of big innovation that excites you coming out of not just the product you're bringing, but the kind of infrastructure that will make it possible?
Well, I think it's such an exciting time, isn't it? Because every time we come to events like this, we just see incredible innovation. And there were some brilliant entrepreneurs that meet at these events. We've got, curb-based charging solutions that are starting to really genuinely address the concern of those without off-street parking. We've got innovations in wallbox technology now that starts to integrate with things like vehicle to grid in a greater way. I think that's really exciting because you learn. And I think what's clear is we need to keep pace with that innovation and foster it. And I think what's been really good is to speak to government. We've heard from Oxford City Council today about how we can remove the barriers actually to make all of this fantastic innovation, both vehicles and charging solutions, easier.
The other thing as well, I think, Adam, that would be a really great thing is how do you use the retail network to provide charging? So actually, people are going to need less servicing, but you can provide free Wi-Fi while I charge. So there's lots of things that you can then keep brand excitement and let me come in and charge if I need to. It may not be within 5 minutes of where I live, but it could be on my route somewhere. And that again is an opportunity where I think actually you've got a business or you've got a car park or you've got a something. How do we kind of unlock the potential of every single parking space that we have through our networks?
I think you're absolutely right. And I think you make a great point as well in terms of awareness.
It's one of those things, isn't it? If you can't find a public charger, don't worry, you'll never be more than X miles away from a Renault dealership. It's like, it's having that peace of mind. If we talk about emotion, making the decisions, it's either that, what are we kind of tapping into in terms of emotion? Is it performance or is it safety and security? And actually some of those things, are all kind of playing on the minds of consumers. So thinking about what's next, then you mentioned obviously Renault 5 launch, you've got new Clio announced as well. So there's some great product coming out of the Renault stable. We talked about, some of those iconic advertising brands as well that really kind of give people connectivity with that brand. So what can we look forward to from Renault?
Well, I mean, it's been an extremely busy time for the brand. I mean, we've got what we call a strategy on 2 legs. So 2 legs is very simple. We've got fully electric vehicles and our hybrid electric vehicles as well. So from a full EV perspective, we've been really clear. We've built dedicated electric vehicle platforms, and that means that we make the very best in terms of efficiency. So this year, that's what's enabled us to launch 2 vehicles on our what we call our Ampere small platform. So Renault 5, Renault 4, obviously with all of that emotion. But next year, we've got the new Renault Twingo.
Nice.
And we're talking about a sub £20,000 electric city car, and it's still got all of that design charm of those of you who can remember the original Twingo that was launched in France back in 1993.
I'm old enough.
I think it's another design that's going to have real emotional appeal with practicality. And again, he's bringing that glass ceiling we talk about down to another level. We're talking about under £20,000. So that's
music
really
to my ears. I've got 3 teenage boys who can all now drive, and actually trying to look for vehicles for them is just it's expensive. But actually, I'm trying to encourage them into EVs because none of them drive massive miles, really, on a daily basis. So absolutely. I mean, I think you look at the breadth of the lineup now. We've got 5 full EVs. We've got within the group as well, we've got an electric hot hatch with Alpine A290. We've got the UK's most affordable electric car with Dacia Spring. Twingo comes next year. So that range is expanding all the time. And the other thing I would make the point about is we often forget commercial vehicles, don't we? But today, we've got 3 fully electric vans. We've already revealed the next generation of that are upgradable in the life cycle as well as software defined. So I think the message for me is, that investment really, really is bringing a range of vehicles that suits, everyday needs of a wide variety of the population. I think the difference now is that collaboration that we're seeing today. That's going to be the difference, making it simple to customers
working together to explain the benefits, I think we're going to create a positive cycle that's going to see that adoption accelerate. And, for us, it's really encouraging to see, over 30% of orders now fully electric.
In the street where I live now, I think most houses have them. I see most people plugging in at night, which is really good. I plug in every night because I've got a hybrid. So actually for me, it's a low mileage, but I just challenge myself to not fill up.
Yeah.
So it's like,
no, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think those types of experiences actually, and I think that's what I'm most excited about as the EV mix starts to grow, that those conversations, those anecdotes of EV owners are now starting to proliferate. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've had 3 or 4 conversations in recent times where I've been charging my Renault 5 in public. People have come to me to talk about the car. And actually, I'll say, well, this is the first time I've charged in public now for 2-3 months. I've managed to charge it at home.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that is what most people say. And I think the more we start to get these stories about what it is to live with an EV, and actually, from my perspective, it's every bit as convenient, if not, to be honest, more convenient than owning a combustion car, I think we'll create the positive cycle. But what's important is to live with it. And that's what I'd say to our retailers as well. I know many of them now are taking advantage of these car schemes, but living it is understanding, is explaining, and I think then we're just going to create a community of advocates.
But I think that's the stuff where if you start to see more and more of it, it becomes normalized. So the TikToks or whatever, we see it all on all social channels, but actually TikTok shopping is going to be a huge kind of growth. We see things being sold. People are selling like huge ticket items on TikTok shop these days. Yeah. But actually I think it's just making sure that we normalize EV usage, EV adoption, EV charging, and it's not scary. It's not in the dark around the back in the rain where people sort of have this, potential like fear of, I've got to charge somewhere and it's not near my home. Yep. And actually, we're all probably lazy as humans, but I think we need to maybe look at how do we tap into those communities to evangelize about how easy it can be.
No, I think you're right. I think ultimately people want that validation, don't they? They want the benefit of impartial experience as well. Because whilst, of course, as manufacturers and the industry will continue to profess the benefits, we know that it's really customers' voices that count. But what we absolutely know is, as I think Ian from AutoTrader has shown this morning, well over 90% of people who've driven an EV would never go back. Yeah. And I think if we can tap into that positive voice, the advocacy, it's only going to create a positive momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I can't wait. I need to drive a Renault 5, I think. That's one of the things.
I'm sure we can arrange that for you, Jackie.
We haven't done any reviews, actually, because we're independent, of course, on the podcast. But it's my background was car magazine, so we used to get all the new products coming home. Yes, not anymore. So, but yeah, it'd be great to actually maybe get some special episodes and spend some time with OEMs just to see what great product is coming out, so we can start to take that message to the retail audience that we look after.
Absolutely. We're more than happy to show you the latest generation of Renault. So.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
Adam Wood from Renault, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'm now joined by Michael Goulden, Mike from Kerbo Charge, who's the CEO. And we're going to talk about all things curbside charging, because I think there is a misconception that if you have a driveway, you can have an EV, and if you don't, you can't. And actually, that's just not true. So I know you were on a panel earlier on talking about how curb charging is really accelerating, and lots of the speakers are talking now about the incredible sort of proliferation now of the ability to charge wherever you are. So welcome to the pod.
Oh, thanks, Jackie. Thanks for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure. Yeah. So if you could just talk a little bit about the work that you do and how long you've been involved with this.
Yeah, well, 40% of households in the UK don't have a driveway, but it's much higher in London. We were doing an install in Tower Hamlets last week. 95% of residents there don't have a driveway. And the reality is that for many of those residents, they pretty make a decision that electric cars aren't for them because they can't charge at home.
Yes.
And indeed, there was a survey completed that was published in Transport and Energy quite recently, and that said that 50% of drivers won't move to electric until they can charge at home. So that has to be solved. And as you say, things are now moving. And we've been working on a product category called cross-pavement charging. And there are a number of different products. Ours is a gully product, and it goes into the pavement outside your home. When you want to charge, you just lift the lid, insert your charging cable, and the lid snaps down shut behind. Perfect. But there's also overhead products, and there's also through pavement products. And we're getting to the point now where, certainly for our product, 25% of local authorities in around about 3 months' time will have adopted it. And that means that, it's getting towards the mainstream, and central government is starting to back it. So we had a £350 grant for anybody installing a charger when you get a cross-pavement channel. That was last year. And now there's £25 million of new funding that's going to be given directly to English councils to help subsidise. So, coming back to your question, now the work is to educate residents across the UK. Yes, actually, if you did want to charge at home, there is a solution, but that's a lot of work to do.
It's not just about whether you have a driveway, but it's like, what does your daily mileage look like? Do you need to have at-home charging, or do you need to have public charging? So thinking about like curbside charging, which obviously is your superpower and what you do and how you're bringing this to millions of homes across the country, what can we do? Obviously, we provide technology and systems to retailers. How can we start to bring that into the everyday conversations that retailers feel more confident having, and how can they access that information? Yeah,
well, the first thing is simple education on all websites and all touch points that retailers have with potential customers. So just adding into the FAQs, can I charge my car when I don't have a driveway? Yes, you can. Here are some different options, and don't just talk about ours, talk about the others as well.
Yeah.
But then it's integrating it seamlessly into the ordering journey. That is the key thing. So if you're going through the ordering journey on a car leasing company website, for example, one of the first things, or AutoTrader as another example, buying a second-hand car, the first thing you're going to do is put in your postcode. And then the next question will be, do you have a driveway or not? Based on the postcode you put in, we should be automatically telling them straight away, great, so you're going to be able to charge at home. Good news, because cross-pavement charging, this particular type, is available in your area. Press this button to choose your charger, and you'll automatically be set up with your cross-pavement charging channel. No going off after that. They need to go to a council website to download forms. It's all done for them. And if it's a salary sacrifice purchase, then that just gets added to their monthly bill. And that's how easy it needs to be. If you start, but as we know, any sort of sales, you put any barriers up, you get drop off very quickly. People want an easy life, and quite understandably.
So what's the biggest innovation that you're excited about in this EV space, or what are you what are you working on?
Yeah, well, firstly, just talking about ourselves, we just brought a cable insertion tool to market. So
really?
This is for anybody who doesn't want to bend down or who can't bend down. So it's been specifically designed for Motability customers, but actually anyone can use it. Yeah. And they set us the challenge. They said, if you want us to be able to recommend your product to Motability customers, you need a tool that allows people to insert their charging cable.
Pop it in without having to, because yes, a lot of 100%. Elderly people, and frankly, my back can hurt if I bend down too much.
Nobody particularly wants to bend down to do things, right?
But also just from a, not being, gross, but like, do you want to be bending down on the pavement outside your house? Just from a hygiene perspective, or do you want to just like use a tool to poke it in? I think that's it.
Exactly. So my co-founder, Ben, I have to give him all the credit for coming up with it. It attaches to your charging cable. Nice. So just holding one thing, and you just line it up and then put it through. So that's what we're doing. But in terms of planning ahead and the bigger opportunities, we've been talking about solid state batteries for a long time, but if we really want EVs to be attractive to everybody without any subsidies, they do need to have the comparable range, and they do need to be the same price or less.
Yes.
And solid state batteries are a key part to that. So I know we're always 2 years away from being 2 years away, but I think we are getting close now. In
terms of sustainability, recycling, all of that, is it just that's all better as well, isn't it? So everything to do with solid state is better for the planet.
Yeah, you've got less things to recycle. Recycling batteries is really hard. And there's been I was reading at the moment, there's nowhere in the UK at the moment that can fully recycle lithium battery. And part of the challenge is that newly mined lithium is very cheap. It's got the prices drop down. So, but I think certainly the EU, and hopefully the UK will follow, have said that a certain percentage of batteries, the makeup of batteries, needs to be made from recycled lithium might be 2030. Yeah. So that's good. That's coming, and that'll become a new part of the market.
Yeah, I think everything we see is we see constant evolution and constant improvement, which is really great to see. So, Mike, I know you've got a train to catch, and I'm really grateful for you stopping by and speaking to us today. So I think that's great. So the key takeout for me is you don't need a driveway to have an EV. Have the conversation and make that information more accessible, and then find local providers that can do curb charging in your area. If not working with you, work with somebody that can do it, but they should obviously give you a call and get involved and see where you can help them. I think the other thing as well is incentives from local government, understand what's being where the investments are being made, and inform yourself about that, because there's going to be lots of stuff going in investment in through local councils, through government to try and drive through adoption.
That's right. There's a big grant coming in England, £25 million for cross-payment charging. So that's going to be going to your local authority by the end of March. In many cases, that will halve the cost of these products. So Great news. Good that central government is really backing this.
It needs to, yeah,
Yes.
it really does. Yeah,
Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And it's been great talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
I'm joined by Harry Bott, who is the director of Mediahawk, and it's been an absolute pleasure bumping into you here because we met back in the day of COVID when it was only Zoom calls only.
Absolutely, and I thoroughly enjoyed it indeed. That was great fun. And actually, it was really useful understanding where the market was going, which was great fun.
Just talk a bit about the work that you do at Mediahawk for anyone that doesn't know what you do at Mediahawk.
Mediahawk, we call ourselves a marketing analytics company who are really good at telephone calls.
Right.
So telephone calls are a critical part of the interaction with the dealerships.
Yeah.
So you'll find that 40 to 50% of all sales come from a phone call, and we monitor where the response to that comes from. So we can show our sort of 20% of the AM 100 users we show where their response comes from, and we link that back to their marketing through to the sale, and then show the effectiveness of how their advertising is going.
Yeah.
So they become better at their processes and their sales processes.
What trends are you seeing around EVs and the phone calls that you're tracking in that space?
I think the exciting thing about the EVs is I think we are getting to an acceptance of people realizing I want one of that. And I think there's a number of things that have changed. The Chinese have made a massive difference because they're right price point, involved with really good technology. And also now that the range anxiety, whenever it was around about 100, everyone was mentally saying, well, I've got to take 30% off for winter. And then if I have battery degradation, I've got 100, 150, or if it was at 200. So people weren't taking those cars seriously.
Yeah.
But now that you just say, what was it? It averages 290. And we're seeing cars up at 500 coming through. I think everyone's suddenly going, right, my next consideration is. And also, finally, thank the Lord, the manufacturers, I think driven again by the Chinese brands, they are bringing them parity to ICE cars. So once you get parity to ICE cars, you're getting some great technology. You're seeing they're going, actually, some of these ICE cars are not very good for the amount of money.
Yeah.
And the other piece in the coin, which I think is really changing, is because there's so much choice sub 40,000, cars above that, particularly the Germans manufacturers, have become above 40,000. Cars have become bloody expensive.
Total cost of ownership is one of those areas where EVs can really start to make you think differently. And also, I think there's sustainability. I know Octopus are here sponsoring the event, and they are an OVO Energy as well. Also, we had them on the podcast, earlier on. There's a lot of innovation around renewable energy, sustainability. Price of electricity is likely to come down as renewables come online. And I know you operate, like you mentioned shipping earlier when we were chatting before we came on. But actually, in China, the investment in renewable energy and infrastructure is incredible.
Yeah.
So they've predicted the future, and they've spent in investment of renewable energy, because they've also invested in battery manufacture, EV vehicle manufacture. You've got to charge those things now. So there's a real shift, isn't there, from brands in terms of, I'm brand loyal, but to a point.
Not only the shift in brands, but also the technology is amazing. And we are going through a revolution in our electricity and how we deal with electricity in this country as well.
Yeah.
In another life, you're probably not aware of it, but I'm also a farmer. And when you look at the scale of what solar's doing, and then apply that to batteries, and once the battery technology comes through in solid state batteries in the next 3 or 4 years, the way we look at electricity and harness electricity is going to be completely different.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited by EVs and EV cars. And I know it's a really tough target to get to 2030, but it feels to me we're at that tipping point.
So in terms of like retailers, it's that having the conversation of, do you have a driveway? How many cars do you have in your household? How do you live? I think it's not just about, I'm going to sell you the thing that you've come in looking for, or I'm going to sell you something I've got on my forecourt. I want to have a relationship with you as a consumer and help you into the right thing and make the right decision. And I think that's the bit where retailers probably don't feel as confident or comfortable.
Well, I think there's a very simple solution to that. One of our best customers, absolutely brilliant, their chairman, executive chairman, he was very cynical about EVs, but he could see because of his who the brands he was representing was coming through. So he borrowed one for a week and he thought, this isn't too bad. He then turned around and he mandated that every single member of staff who was on the car scheme had to drive an EV. And they are one of the best sellers of EVs in the country.
Wow.
Because then they can't sit there and say they don't understand and try and sell people out of the product.
Yeah.
So if I was a retailer, especially a large-scale retailer, I would be sitting there and saying none of my senior management can drive anything except an EV.
Yeah. If they're coming, you're going to have to sell that product anyway.
But not only that, but you need to understand it. You need to
Yeah.
understand the effect on your business. You understand why it's not going to have service work and all the bits that everyone's worried about. But what I find extraordinary is how many of the senior management in the country are not driving EVs and not mandating their staff to drive into EVs. However, that then leads on to something really, really interesting, which might change the whole basis in the next year. If what the government's doing on ECOS, as in the tax benefits of cars for dealers, does go through, then there's going to be a complete shock to the system. Like, I'm fag packaging here, okay? But there's about 75,000 people who've got ECOS under the ECOS scheme.
ECOS means?
I can never remember what it stands for, but it's basically whereby if you turn the car rapidly, you don't have to pay personal tax on it.
Got it.
Yeah. I can't remember what it stands for.
So pre-reg, basically.
Well, that's what's provided. It's what's provided the nearly new fleet.
Yes.
Now, if you think there's 75,000 people, and a dealer on average will turn that car, will hand it back in of their staff, hands that back twice a year. That's 150,000 cars. That's 8% of the new market is currently run through dealers, effectively.
Yeah.
So the effect of that, if the tax effect, which the Chancellor is saying is going to raise $2 billion, I think that's very debatable. And you can see Robert Forrester's doing a lot of work to try and stop this happening. But let's say it goes through. Two things are going to happen. No one, because of the BIK effect of getting a large Range Rover, you won't have one. So that suddenly we won't get that nearly new. But actually, the cars that have tax benefits, such that you can do salary sacrifice or whatever, are EVs. So bizarrely, if ECOS goes through, the tax changes goes through there, we might see a really weird thing happening in the market. So suddenly, no one will want ICE, but they're all going to want, if they're going to have the throughput, it might put a fillip behind EV, especially if the EVs have come through to the level you want.
So in terms of that, your big crystal ball moments, you predicted supply chain challenges.
Yeah.
Next big crystal ball moment will be change to ECOS potentially.
I think
dramatically change adoption of that kind of nearly new stock because you're through pushing
especially the high value stuff. I think if I was sitting in some German boardrooms, I must be very nervous because let's say the average price of my car is 50, 60, 70,000 pounds. I mean, they've been pushing their brands up and up and up. And I don't see why people will be going out there trying to buy that product. I mean, do you want to do something extraordinary? I don't know. Maybe I can send you the visual and you can put it on your side.
Yeah.
Walk outside here today. There is an Xpeng, there is a Nissan EV, and there's a Porsche. I guarantee you will not tell the difference between any of those cars. And I sat and I thought, holy cow, that's the problem.
Yeah.
So if you're a heritage manufacturer with all the, Versping, whatever techniques you want to throw at it, and someone comes up with a £40,000 car that's got all the toys, bells, whistles, 7-year warranty, £269 a month, £269 down. And you're sitting there up at £60,000, £70,000 for the same thing. And I was with one of someone I know really well. I won't say who they were, but they got a BMW and some Chinese and other brands. And he said he was in the BYD, and he said, I prefer that to the BMW. And it's a
difficult.
Real challenge. It's a real challenge.
I think you've got to be really on your game if you're a manufacturer of any product, because loyalty is it's a big challenge. You want to make sure that you retain your customers and your brand. I was in Canada last year, and there were some retailers there that were really worried about the new entrants, and I was like, but it's your shop. Yeah. You should stock what you think consumers will buy. You don't have to stay with the franchise that you've already got, because actually you've got the ability to broaden out your product range. Is what retailers do in supermarkets. They're not going to sell something that isn't going to sell, but they have their shelf space is a premium. So recognize that your car park is a premium.
Yeah. But I have an expression which I'm calling the Chinese brand national. And the reason I call it the brand national is it's a pun, it's a take on the Grand National, where all the horses have very high odds.
Yeah.
And you always think, well, if I get the 20-1, I'm up for it. I've done really well. And the brand national is the same thing. At the moment, I think, is there 100 different Chinese brands?
There's a lot.
There's a lot. Okay. So we've got a huge demand.
Yeah.
And that always happens. But I think they're forecasting in 5 to 10 years' time, there'll be 7 to 10.
Yeah, I think that's the same though. It's like you go to move the event there and there's like a whole startup village of loads of.
So let's look at the brand
companies.
national and let's look at the brand national. You know, OJ has, Omoda Jaku has gone to over 2% market share in 9 or 10 months. And so to me, the interesting thing in the market is a number of things. One is in the next 5 years, and I probably shouldn't say on your podcast who's going to go, I estimate at least 5 to 10 brands heritage brands will no longer be here. So you could add them to the brand national. But the Chinese brand national, we're going to see this mushrooming of Chinese brands that are coming through. But for a retailer, you've got to make sure you choose the right one because there's only going to be 4 players who'll make it.
So for these heritage brands, as you've called them, what should they be doing now to make sure that they retain their footprint and retain their, maybe not dominance, but actually they retain a footprint?
They've got a number of things. They've got to have the right price product. Ultimately, people
less than 40 grand.
Less than 40, probably less than 40 grand. They can't rely. They've got to innovate. I mean, it's really interesting. Earlier, listening to Renault. Renault 5 is the halo car, and we all understand, and it's been very clever. But the comment, what did he say? We did it in 2 years. I mean, the Chinese are doing it in 6 months.
Yeah.
So, if you look at survivals in markets down to innovation, but what they've got through the name heritage, they've got some fantastic heritage models that they could reimagine, just as Renault 5 has done. And that's what's and I'm going to be brutally frank here, isn't it depressing about the Capri? There was an opportunity to have using the electrics of an amazing heritage with some fantastic design moments.
Yeah.
And so Jaguar's trying to come in at 100,000. Now, if Ford had come back with a 65,000 EV Capri style fastback in electric doing 400 miles, that would have walked out the door.
So Harry, we're going to wrap up. We need to get you on a full podcast and get some Harry's predictions, and then we're going to hopefully spend some time in a minute with Adam from Renault, so we can get the story on the Renault 5. But it's been brilliant to have your predictions. Can you just ask
him one question?
Of course.
Having driven a Renault 4, why does the Renault 4 not look like a Renault 4? Well, it's the most beautiful bubble car. It's the opportunity to have a Renault 5, which is my son, who's an electrical engineer, amazing man. I remember doing amazing stuff. He just walked in and said, Dad, if I have a car, he doesn't got one at the moment because he doesn't need to. He said, I'm going to buy a Renault 5. And I said, they're great. And I said, but the Renault 4 doesn't look like the Renault 4. I wish they'd made it look like the Renault 4 because I had one called Chuffers in red. But I wish it had looked more like a Renault 4.
We're now joined by Lauren Pamma, who joins me from Aldermore Bank. And your role there is you're head of infrastructure and financing. So just explain a bit about what you do, Lauren, because I know I literally stalked you on LinkedIn when I saw you were speaking here. And I'm just curious to know what you're doing in terms of financing and investment in the infrastructure space. So
yes, sure. So Aldermore is one of the challenger banks that came out of the financial crisis. So we provide finance to SMEs. We also do retail savings and corporate savings for people and mortgages, things like that. But my role there is as head of energy and infrastructure finance. So my team provides finance to renewable energy developers or businesses who are looking to install renewable energy technologies or charge points, things like that. So my role is to decide who to lend money to, and then hopefully they pay it back to me, and it enables them to go and do what they need to do in terms of rolling out infrastructure.
What kind of projects are you sort of busy getting involved with in the EV space at the moment around, whether is it local, is it global? How does it work?
So we are UK only focused, which is a bit of a shame because there's lots of opportunities to do things globally, but we can't do that at the moment. We're UK only. But one of the main reason I was at the summit today was because the first deal that we've done as a team, we've only been operating for a year, was to lend some money to Osprey charging networks to enable them to finance their next wave of rollout of EV charge points. So
nice.
really great to be able to do that because it's a sector that there's not an awful lot of debt finance flowing into at the moment. There's a lot of equity around, and so that is still quite an expensive way of financing. For a long time, I think the charge point operators have been focusing on just getting things in the ground and rolling out as fast as possible to build that scale. What we're now seeing is they're really focusing on quality over quantity, and starting that path towards profitability, which means that debt can start to flow into the sector. So we are looking at other ways that we can support the sector, whether that's another part of the business that finances EVs as well. So we finance some salary sacrifice schemes. We finance electric vehicles themselves, from trucks down to vans and Teslas and all sorts. But my focus really is on the infrastructure and that supporting infrastructure. So that deal with Osprey was great.
Just so I understand, is this infrastructure that local government are putting in, or private investment, or both? Or how do you sort of decide where to kind of play your chips, so to speak?
Yeah, so the one with Osprey, they're putting in private infrastructure and that's being funded privately, and they're taking out hubs and partnering with businesses such as garden centres and hotels and shopping centres and places like that to put in that infrastructure, and there's no government funding going into that part of the market.
Right.
There's obviously other parts of the market where companies are able to access Levi funding. We haven't yet been involved in any of those, although I expect that we will be in the future, because the public sector can't finance that whole rollout by itself, and actually arguably shouldn't. This should be a sector like many other areas of infrastructure where private finance does have to provide the capital, because the pockets of the government aren't deep enough. But where the government really needs to provide support is in that policy certainty. So, being able to say that we need to hit a certain number of EVs on the road by a certain date means that we can believe the story that we're told about actually how will that infrastructure be used over the next few years, and will those revenues come through like we're expecting them to? So that policy certainty from government means that we can sort of trust in the predictions that we're given.
So just thinking about the summit today, then, what's kind of excited you? Because obviously you've been here, I know you were speaking on one panel, but what's, and we've heard a lot about partnerships and collaboration, because I think there's an industry that's kind of coming together and different people are bringing different strengths. So what's excited you today about the summit?
It's been really, because I've been coming to this summit now for a few years, and actually I'm seeing a lot of new faces today, which has been quite nice. Used to seeing the same people at these things over a number of years, and I've seen a few people I know who have been here for a long time, but a good number of new faces, which is exciting in itself. Also heard a little bit more about some of the new sort of charge point technologies that might be coming out. There was a panel just now where they were speaking about that and some of the sort of security features that are having to go in there because cable theft seems to becoming a thing. So, how are companies helping to secure against that? There was a really great talk as well from Thatchams about insurance, which was oddly interesting. And now I understand just why my insurance is quite as high as it is.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot to take in.
Yeah.
And some great networking opportunities as well. There always are at these things.
I think these events are great for that. So Chris mentioned the Thatcham talk was about the reason that EVs are being written off is because there isn't enough or infrastructure in the country about how do you assess the damage to batteries and repair them. So the whole vehicle's being written off because there just isn't enough known. So the cable theft thing, I actually occasionally I've plugged my car and using the cable in the boot of my car, but mostly I charge it at home. But you do think, what if someone did? Luckily, my car locks it in. Yeah. So I have to unlock my car to get the cable out. But you do worry that someone could damage the thing to get it out.
Yeah,
which
and
is
I
a
think
worry.
It is. And I think what some of the public charge point operators are seeing is actually people cutting the cables to take the copper out, even though there's not an awful lot of those metals in. You sort of hear rumours that actually that's happening a bit. So they were talking about some of the things that you're putting in to stop that, like massive alarms as soon as the cable's cut, people being sprayed with purple spray, a bit like cash point machines used to. Hopefully that doesn't become
that's
a
not
thing,
a problem.
but,
Like when enough people have an EV, everyone will just be everywhere, won't they? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah.
So, what are you looking forward to sort of next? What's kind of big on the roadmap for you? Then, are you working with the next kind of other charge point operators, or how are you? What kind of keeps you busy?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm focused across, I guess, 4 areas really: charge points, solar, onshore wind, battery storage as well. So looking at all of those things, which actually all do sort of play into the whole energy transition story. So, but be great to talk to other charge point operators who might be looking for, the next stage of funding for them to continue their journey. Equally, any other sort of people who are looking for finance for renewable energy, really, even if it's just a business who wants to put some solar panels on their roof, happy to chat to them.
I think, though, from a retail perspective, we have an awful lot of real estate in the automotive space.
Yeah.
There's loads of real estate. So every car dealer who has, and Chris was talking about just having solar panels on like carports, or how do you make sure that your car park is fully electrified? So actually when you have got more vehicles coming, you need to keep them charged.
Yeah.
So I think the real estate from the retailers is massive, and there's a huge opportunity there to provide charging for your customers. I'm quite happy to go in and sit while my vehicle is serviced and use the Wi-Fi. But equally, if the Wi-Fi is in there and I can get a coffee, let me charge up at a discounted rate, or even at my standard tariff rate. I don't mind if I'm on the road and I can find a dealership with my badge on, or open up to anyone. But I think there is an opportunity to electrify the automotive network more rapidly because the real estate is there. They all have a rooftop and they all have a massive car park.
There
So I
definitely
think
is.
that for me would be that's an opportunity. That's a bit of a golden nugget.
That is. If you've got retailers watching who have got a lot of roof space, then tell them to
Stick
get in
a panel
touch.
on it
We can
and
point them in the
plug stuff
direction of a
in.
good solar installer, I'm sure.
But that's it, isn't it? It's like, where do you find, thinking ahead of where your business is going to go,
Yeah.
you don't need to, and I told this story actually before, that I bought my hybrid, and what they didn't do, and it was a real missed opportunity, they hadn't charged it up for me. I'd never driven an EV, and I was really excited.
That's a bit of an own goal, isn't
It's
it?
a massive own goal. I was like, oh, come on. But they went and filled it up for me. If they'd have charged it up, I could have driven off under my own electrons, as it were.
Yeah.
So I was frustrated, but I didn't have one charge point at the dealership. So again, it's another thing, you go, have 7. Don't have 1, just put more in. And then all of those, the more you see cars charged up, being plugged in, you just see that it's everywhere. So
yeah, definitely. If you start to see it and you think it's normal, I think that is a massively helpful way of getting over to people that this is here and it's here to stay.
The one thing I didn't know was there were banks doing just infrastructure charging, or funding rather. So that's good to know. So actually,
we do more than that, but we do. But we do fund.
But you've got a whole division of people that are just ready to fund. That is just ready to fund EV infrastructure. So it's good to know. And actually, hopefully, any of the retailers that listen to this that want to know more about how to fund those kinds of initiatives, there is someone that will happily listen to them and guide them. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. It's been great, and hopefully, I'll see you here again next year.
Hope so. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm here with Ian Plummer at the EV Summit. Ian, everyone's been talking about you today because you went first with your keynote with some killer statistics, and everyone said now on the podcast throughout the day what you talked about this morning. So I thought it'd be quite useful just to get you to talk about what you talked about. And then also, you and I obviously have known each other for a very long time, so it's really nice to finally have you on our podcast.
It's a pleasure to join you. Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
I think just some of the things that you talk about, obviously you have a huge amount of data with AutoTrader. You understand, you're on the pulse of consumer behavior. And I think what we talked about, and you just mentioned, we're in a bit of an echo chamber here in an EV summit because these are people that are really invested in EVs. And what we want to do is broaden that message out to retailers that use, a variety of other systems and maybe don't have information to hand. So you had some great statistics this morning. So if you could just talk through some of those details and that data that you shared.
Well, I guess the start point is we're halfway on a 10-year sort of challenge, the journey towards 2030 and the ZEV mandate of getting all petrol diesel cars sort of out of the new car market at that point. We're at half time. So how are we doing? The point is pretty well if you're realistic, as well as, more on the optimistic side. You could be a naysayer, and there are plenty out there. Come back to that point. But the new car progress is pretty good. The used car market is also growing pretty well. The consumer appetite is growing. 4 in 10 people are saying that they're considering EVs for their next car, new and used alike. So that's strong. There are roughly 1 in 6 of all the leads sent on used cars at the moment are for an EV. That was 1 in, I think, 50 about 2020. So the numbers have grown. We'd all like them to grow quicker and more smoothly and less painfully and with less cost, without OEMs having to push too hard, without funders sometimes seeing their losses for cars that are depreciated, without retailers, as they did in winter 22, 23, have cars that depreciated massively all of a sudden on their forecourts and so on. But actually, for example, on used cars, EVs are again right now turning faster than other fuel types. So there is positivity. The halftime sort of report card would probably be pretty good. But the next stage of the journey are even steeper in terms of the curve of the ZEV mandate and so on. And you've got the early adopters on board. You're now getting the early majority, but getting everybody else means getting sort of even the naysayers and the most negative folks who sort of over my dead body kind of type.
Yeah.
And also including getting every retailer to be comfortable selling one of these cars. And they're more complicated to sell, they're more complicated to buy. So it's a transition which is behavioral change, and behavioral change is complex. It takes time, takes effort, and not everybody's got the time and the effort and the inclination to do all these things. So fundamentally, the optimism we see is that we do see a point in a couple of years' time where you will have cars that, not all of them, but some that can charge as quickly as you can fuel a petrol car.
Yeah.
You will have cars that are increasingly, as some are today already, priced at parity to their ICE equivalents. And you will have more and more retailers who are comfortable selling them. So the proposition looks pretty good. There's a huge range of choice now in terms of price brackets, sizes, brands, and so on. More brands than ever selling cars in a very competitive market. And that competitive point, by the way, is a real driver of the market. We've got regulatory challenge, but the competitive push is huge. There's 75 brands selling new cars in the UK today for a 2 million market.
75 brands.
There were 45 in 2020. So there are so many more competing for a smaller market. So there's a huge competitive challenge. We're in a very open market, more so than the European market, which has got tariffs in place against the new entrants from China in particular. So all of that is pushing in the right direction towards a situation where hopefully the consumer sees price parity. And that's what makes used EVs work. They're at parity, as painful as it is in terms of depreciation. And that hopefully brands will also get there by also having cost parity and therefore margin parity. So they have a successful transition that makes them money. That's where we are so far. The next stages, though, look challenging for a couple of key reasons. Despite that sort of relative optimism and the fact that the cars can be good and the proposition can be quite strong, fundamentally, it feels that there are challenges of equity. In particular, even though today around 3/4 of people who have EVs today charge at home, they very rarely charge publicly, and when they do, it's on their rare longer journeys, and they're fine with that. Increasingly, we will need to get into the mass market of people, including those who charge at home, who can't charge at home, who need some form of local charging on street, and don't just want that to be available, which it isn't always today, but they will need that to be affordable.
Just after your keynote and then the panel that came after you, they were talking about collaboration is going to be really critical. So making your home energy tariff available when you're on the road. So actually you can now, with certain energy suppliers, use your own tariff. Sarah Sloan was also talking about how certain, even in a car park, you'll have different charge tariffs. So just like being a bit more switched on as a consumer when you're out and about and you do need to charge, about what are you going to be charged. Don't just plug into the first thing without looking at the tariff, but make sure that you're kind of aware, and how do we make sure retailers are aware that they're connecting consumers into, or having a conversation about, Ian, like the best, are you thinking about tariffs? Who is your energy supplier? Do you connect up with your at-home charger, with your, how you kind of connect all those pieces? And obviously AutoTrader is the place where majority of consumers go to buy and shop and look around and look at pricing and valuations and everything else. So I think there's such an opportunity for us to surface that data at every single touch point. So yeah, how's the site kind of engineering itself for all of that? Because you are always testing new tech and new ways of giving information to consumers.
Well, fundamentally, it's all about making a car buying journey simpler. But the car buying journey already today isn't simple.
No.
It isn't enjoyable, to be honest with you, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
We're trying to do a lot around sort of digital retailing engagement, enabling people to do more in the transparent, controllable, flexible ways that suit them, rather than necessarily pushing them into the old school method of this is how you do it, step 1, 2, 3 of a sales process and so on in retailer. So the combination of digital where relevant, retailer definitely for everybody. We think just about everybody wants and enjoys the retail experience, but particularly when it blends well. That can be applied really to the nth degree in terms of EVs. Buying a car is not simple. Buying an electric car is ever less simple because there are just more questions. There are more jobs to be done.
Yes.
So the key for us and for anybody in our situation is to try and make some of those jobs as simple as they can be, to make the data as available as it can be in a layperson friendly way. So we don't talk kilowatt hours, for example, on AutoTrader. When you look at the charge speeds of a given vehicle on our platform, we don't talk in the sort of kind of jargon and acronyms that consumers just don't get.
No.
So we try to talk in terms of simple layperson-friendly logic, such as if you're looking at home charging this vehicle, we assume you've got a standard rate of charge for home charging of X. You can have a drop down and play with that. But if you're going to charge either a quick charge 30 minutes, how many miles do you get? If you're going to do a longer charge, how long will it take you to fill the battery? So those are simple ways that people think. And the same would apply to if you want to charge this car publicly, let's assume a fast charge. If you want a quick 30 minutes stop, how many miles are you going to get with that? That's the kind of way people think.
Also, taking away the jargon for the retailers, because actually they're inundated with product knowledge, and because you were working with retailers when you were running the sales division at Volkswagen, all these, when I was, we were working together then. But actually, so it's making it jargon friendly for the retailers so they can have an informed decision or discussion with the consumer. And there's some amazing independent tech around the EV health check, isn't there, now that we can just plumb in?
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be your data. It's third party data that says, brilliant, yes, good, green, orange, red, whatever. So when you're buying it. Weirdly though, Ian, no one does that about an engine. No one knows how hard that thing's been driven.
No.
So why do we have a different set of measures for an EV?
I know. And frankly, I've sold lots of cars. I've been a retailer. I've been a brand side. I'm not a car expert, and I can't really tell you how the engine works.
Could you? No,
and
I
most
couldn't.
consumers, in my experience, there are two types, broadly speaking. There are those that love that detail and want to know how something works. If you like, the feature. Very few of those, actually. The vast majority just want to know what the benefit of the thing is. What is that stuff, like an ESP control on the cornering of the car? What does it do
that
to me?
mean?
I don't care how it works, but what does it do? Oh, it makes me corner more safely. Okay,
you won't
fine.
slide off the road. Great. Okay, fine. Yeah.
I know it's the benefit that something can procure to you. So actually, I don't think sales teams in retailers or after sales teams need to know all of the detail to be able to feel confident in explaining, I drive one of these cars. It's really comfortable.
Yes.
It's really quiet. It accelerates really nicely. It performs fantastically. The tech in it is really good. Those things that they're used to doing in any situation on any car.
Yeah.
And I do think we're at the point where more and more retailers are gaining more and more confidence. If you're in a franchise retailer, clearly, depending on which brand you're working with, the Japanese, some of the brands have been a little bit further behind the curve. But if you're working, let's say, we talked about Renault earlier, a little bit further ahead of the curve. If you're working with the Korean brands, you're further ahead of the curve. In those cases, you've already had a lot of customers come and buy your EV6s now, your EV3s and your EV9s and so on. The example of Kia doing brilliantly. So they are. Those products are fantastic and they are doing well. They're selling a good range of their product. BMW doing well in the sort of ZEV stakes and so on. So retailers in those environments, if they're sort of hitting a third or so of their sales as electric, which is roughly where they are, that means 1 in 3 of the people coming through the showroom doors are asking questions about electric, at least 1 in 3, so the one buying them. Therefore, as a salesperson, I'm getting more and more used to answering those questions. And as I get used to it, I get comfortable with it.
So from your, obviously you've been at loads of keynotes today and you're all over the industry anyway. So what are the innovations that are exciting you most in this space, Ian?
I think fundamentally there's two things. One is the affordability of the car. That's the biggest blocker still today for most people in terms of EV take-up. If you look at the brands I've mentioned, I've called out a few that are already doing a really good job. What they've done is rethink the production process, the design process and the production process of the car. Adam Wood of Renault talked very eloquently about that. In their case, they've learned from the Chinese. They have a Shanghai-based facility that is doing some great work in that regard. They've also brought some of that fast-moving, fast development tech back into their French base, where I used to be based over at Renault head office a while back. So they've taken the learnings of those who've probably got ahead of the curve, particularly the Chinese and Tesla, who did that work, rethinking the shape, the design, the processes involved of building a smart EV, rather than taking an ICE vehicle and shoving a battery in it, which basically has led to this huge cost. And if you do that, you do it slowly as well. And as battery costs have come down massively, lithium prices have come down, if you have a fast speed of development of new product, you can put that more affordable battery into your product, get it out into the market and benefit from that cost reduction.
Yeah, absolutely.
And have a good margin on selling a car at price parity, which sells therefore really well. Renault 5, no surprise, it sells really well. I don't know, lots of examples, Skoda Elrox. There are many others that are at price parity with ICE equivalents. So you've got to sort that affordability out. And that can only happen if you rethink the design processes and learn from those who've got ahead of the curve. Try and catch back up with them as fast as you can. The second point is around batteries themselves, where you've got not just the affordability of the battery, which is such a key driver of the overall car affordability, but the the range of that particular battery and the performance of it. So I'm excited by the likes of CATL, BYD that are pushing ahead and fighting each other, to be honest. I mentioned competitive pressures already earlier.
Yeah.
It's great to see that they're trying to sort of one-up each other with both the range of their batteries, the speed of charge, and even swappability. So range, CATL today even talked about 1,000-mile battery that they're now putting into operational test. CATL and BYD have both talked about batteries that will charge fully in 5 minutes that they're now rolling out.
That's insane, isn't it, when you think of how far we've come?
So we are talking about cars that you can charge as quickly as you can fuel them.
Yeah.
And CATL are getting behind the Neo tech that we've probably all talked about in past times, which allow you to swap a battery. So if they put their scale behind that, whether you swap or charge a longer lasting battery, you've kind of got rid of the issue, because your petrol car tends to do 300, 400, 500 miles maybe of petrol.
Yeah.
You're there. You're sorted, I think.
Ian Plummer from AutoTrader, thank you so much for joining me on the pod. And it was great to see you in action doing your keynote. So
Thank you.
we need a full-time pod. We need a full-length pod with you at some point. So we'll get that
We'll
booked
come
in. I hope you enjoyed part 2 of the On the Road series at the EV Summit. That was an amazing bunch of guests. Don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like and a follow and subscribe. You'll never miss an episode. Stay tuned for part 3, which is coming next Friday.